Welcome to Techtastic, the podcast that explores the cutting-edge world of technology and its impact on society. New breakthroughs and developments are revolutionizing the world around us, presenting exciting opportunities as well as complex challenges. We'll explore the big ideas and key players driving these transformations as we seek to understand the implications of these advancements for our lives, our communities, and our planet. Join us on this journey of discovery and exploration as we navigate the fascinating and ever-evolving world of technology. This is Techtastic.
Ali Abassi, welcome to It's Techtastic. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you're in the prompt engineering space largely, right? And helping others learn to be prompt engineers.
Yeah, you got it correct. So I started AI for Work. It's a prompt library for the workplace. And it's basically just prompts divided by individuals' roles. So securities lawyer, outside sales rep.
I had somebody on yesterday that it's a pretty big pushback on prompt engineering as a thing, especially when it comes to like sharing prompts. And that pushback actually comes to something I believe very strongly in too, which is it's like teaching a person to fish versus giving them a fish. Like if you give them a prompt, you're teaching them how to do something right now, but the thing that they're using itself learns and changes, which means the prompt is going to be useless in a year.
There's ways to avoid the drift, right? Like if you take a look at AI for Work and the prompts that I put together, they're mostly in JSON code. So as a result, they stay quite firm and the instructions are so clear. So it's an interesting way that people are prompting now with JSON, but it's allowing the system to really understand and not drift very often and get consistent results over and over again.
So it's in JSON, which is just a markup, which allows you to hold a bunch of like text in a format that you can then redo. Is there a system that sits behind it and updates it? So like when ChatGPT 5 comes out, the prompts will get updated with something? Is that the idea?
So there's basically a framework that I have for all of the prompts on the platform. And they start with like basic prompt, which is your task, right? Like create a marketing plan. But then there's rules set with them. There's a criteria for evaluating them. And the unique thing that I've set up here is that it does a loop. So it evaluates the work, tells you how to improve it, and then asks you if you want to improve it. And then it gives you a rating out of 10. But yeah, there's parameters that you can use. And my favorite thing about it is the fact that with ChatGPT, it's basic like natural language logic that it allows you to put into it. OpenAI started their enterprise offering yesterday, allowing companies that had security issues or anything like that to have their own environment. I think that's going to be huge. I think like in a workplace, ChatGPT is going to go from like maybe 10% usage to 80% usage. And I think there's going to be so many people who want to learn how to do this and learn how to use these tools.
I couldn't agree more. The enterprise offering for them was a no-brainer. They had to move that path very rapidly. Their biggest risk at the moment, though, is getting sued into having to retrain all their models from the ground up because they gathered data in a way that is not compatible with copyright law.
For sure. But do you think that's actually going to happen? Or do you think it's going to be delayed for the next 4 or 5 years and they'll build AGI by that point?
No, that's a really good question. Like, will it get held up? The thing that can happen is that you can have an order put in place that stops them from being able to operate their existing business while the question's answered. And any good lawyer that's trying to go after them for damages is going to try to get that cease and desist order put into place to stop them from continuing to do anything so that as they drag it out, they're the ones getting screwed by it. But there's so much money behind it, and it's owned by one of the largest companies on earth. It would be very, very difficult for that to get held up for any period of time. And in fact, they'd probably just move jurisdictions into a place where they didn't have to deal with it. That's the problem of chasing giants.
That's exactly what I was thinking too, because like, remember how Uber came to market? They just went into towns, whether they got approval or not. And then they said, the future, this is going to be here. We're going to work it out. I feel like OpenAI is in the same boat. They're just like, we're going to train these models to make them as smart as possible. And then all the laws that we're breaking, like they will eventually come back or like we could deal with them at some point.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that front. There's an issue that's been true for a long time of like, once you're a global corporation with a certain amount of momentum and power, it's very difficult for anybody to rein it in. And all they'd have to do is say to any jurisdiction in the United States that was trying to put their foot down on it, like, fine, we're moving to China, where there's no such thing as copyright law. Okay, so here's how much of a nerd I am. all of your understanding of anything, it comes back to your own contextual relationship with the historic moment in which you were introduced to it. So if somebody was to say, Ali, describe chair to me. Now, initially you'd say something I sat on, and then they'd go, what about an ottoman? What about a stool? What about a sofa? What about the floor? And then you'd say, oh, it raises me off the ground. Okay, that didn't eliminate any, right? But like the reason that in your head, you know what a chair is at some point as a child, you said, what's that? And your dad or mom or uncle or whoever said chair. And then you said, what's that? And they said chair. And eventually they got to something that they said sofa, but right? Okay. And you have all those images and all those smells and all the, sitting in it and all that. You have all that contextual experiential data that's chair. So if I was to go to an AI tool and say, take everything else out of it, define chair to me in a visual format, just do chair, and take every bit of, like, it has alligator skin on it for whatever reason, and it has velvet, like, get all that out, just show me chair. What's the essence of chair? I was playing around with that, and it was very fascinating. Yeah.
That would be fascinating. That's like pure machine learning. And
then there's the aspect of recursion that goes with that too, because it's not just one chair. It's, if you're an AI, if you're a generative AI system, it's millions, if not billions of chairs. And what's the chair aspect of chair that's not a sofa, an ottoman, a floor, a beanbag, whatever? Like, take all that stuff out of it so that there's no overlap. It's no longer any of those things. What's left? And what you get is an incomprehensible gobbledygook of a thing that, like, you look at it and go, I don't get it. Like, but it does. And then the question is, like, can you do the opposite, though? Can you create something that is essence of chair that a human understands in a two-dimensional form without it being like a specific chair? And the answer on that front is very similar. Nope, incomprehensible gobbledygook and ends up with mud. Anyway, sorry, totally off topic.
All good.
So we were talking at the very beginning about prompt engineering and the risk of change that comes about because these systems are evolving at a pace faster than most people can keep up with. And so when you're teaching people to use something like ChatGPT and you're giving them prompts, how do you stay ahead of the curve so that the information that you shared with them today isn't invalid tomorrow?
Yeah, great question. So many people, when they see traditional prompts, they go on like Twitter or they go on social media and they see these prompt packs. And then you read these prompt packs and you're like, okay, this is really just a glorified Google search. What is SEO? What is a blog article? So I'm a marketer. I was using these tools. I was downloading every single prompt pack that I could find. And I just wasn't satisfied, right? Like, I found myself editing heavily all of the content that I would get out of ChatGPT. And then just out of my frustration, I just started exploring. And I came across a prompt that was written in code, right? It was just written in basic JSON code. And it had parameters. Specific things were like task, your role, rules that you have to follow, steps that you have to follow. And through that process, I started testing over and over and over again. And what I found out was that if you do write your code, your prompts in JSON format in a very logical way, it actually stays consistent across anybody who's using it. And it follows a very certain framework. So yeah, I would say, like, write them in code. You'll get much better results because it follows the system.
I cringed when you said in code and then said JSON because
yeah.
So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's a markup. It's like HTML in that sense.
For sure.
JavaScript itself isn't code. And then it's an object. So I am a turbo.
No, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And I'm like a marketer who doesn't really understand code, but having a tool like ChatGPT that allows me to pull something out that I would look at like code is just super powerful. But yeah, I think like one thing that I realized that made my prompts a little bit better than what I found online was an evaluation method. So like what the prompts do, you basically look for a task. So say you're like a marketer who's in copywriting and you need to write an ad brief or like an advertorial. You would go, you would put in the prompt, just literally click copy, paste it into GPT-4. It asks you 5 questions. Then it does the work for you. And then it evaluates itself based on 6 criteria. So it's like how well it used reference material that were written in the prompts. So like which books did you leverage the key insights to actually finish this work? Point of view from another industry member. So like another professional in that industry ranking your work. And it tells you why it got a certain rating and how to improve it. And then it asks the user, do you want to improve it with the guidance I just provided. As soon as you click yes, it repeats it.
So there are plugins for ChatGPT that do some of these types of actions. And then there are things like Baby AGI or some of those, right?
Spot on.
Is it similar in that sense? You're telling in a pre-prompt effectively ChatGPT that, hey, after you do this thing, I want you to do these other things. Is that effectively what's happening?
Spot on. And you got Baby AGI exactly right. It's exactly like that in a sense. So I think what we're going to see in the future is these type of Baby AGIs, but for the workplace, where you're going to have your own marketing, one that does the creative brief for you by just asking. But the stage that we're in right now, this takes it somewhere in the middle where it has a little bit of autonomy to it, where it asks it to evaluate its own work, revise its work based on its evaluation, and it just gives the users hotkeys. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Press 3. And then by the time they evaluate it like 2 or 3 times, they end up with a 10 out of 10 document that actually sounds unique. It doesn't have that ChatGPT type of tone and language. It's.
So one of the things that the reason I was bringing up the code script notation thing is there's actually, this is a very good thing. It's no longer a requirement that you have to know even the distinction between those things to be able to do this type of action. Like all of a sudden, the power of automation and of the computer, the promise that's been there forever, is there to anybody, right?
Yeah.
But you need to take the time to get to know it. In the case of, that's what you did, right? Is you figured it out.
Sure.
Or you need to find people that have done it that can help you like bridge the gap between being a complete novice and being powerful with it today. So tell me more about AI for work. What is it that you offer and how would somebody find out more about that?
Yeah, so right now it's actually just a free resource. As OpenAI goes into the enterprise and every employee wants to use ChatGPT at some point, they're going to try to find a way to do it. If they go to my website, they could just simply select their department, select their exact role, and they'll find 15 to 20 different prompts to do some of their core tasks. There's expertise related prompts where you could speak with an expert in your field, and there's actual prompts that just do the work based on your input using this exact same framework. And then as a result, when they join the website, they just join part of the community. It's a newsletter where the focus of that whole newsletter is how to be more productive at work. We don't go too deep into like random tools or various, it's not about the new, it's about what's working, what people are using to actually save time at work right now, and just how to leverage GPT as best as possible to automate your life.
Yeah, automate everything always.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Ali, it was an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Techtastic. I want to thank you personally for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep exploring and stay curious.